Well, good morning. If you're looking for a different way to source material for resale, if you're into Etsy or eBay, now think about auctions. It's a good way to get a lot of items in one location, and it's repeatable. Some people like to go to Goodwill. I like auctions. And these days, they tend to be online auctions. It's not the way I started in the business, but it's what the industry seems to have normalized up at, especially in our area. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. You can watch several at once. They can be scattered all around your state. And if you want to specialize in smaller items, challenge coins, jewelry, silver, you can do it from the comfort of your home, and they can mail it to you. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on a laptop. It doesn't really matter. So the next video, the one I'm about to intro, is watching a local auction. This one is on a 2-week cycle, and I plan to go over there every time. So I take a look at what's available, what he's offering. If it happens to fit the categories I like, I put in a bid. And I'll stay with those items until they get to a certain point and I don't see a value in buying them. Because there's a big difference between buying them for your own use and buying them to resell. Buying them for yourself, you're looking at, am I getting a deal compared to, say, a big box store, which these days is where a lot of these items come from. Their shelf pulls, their store returns, their seasonal end of stocks. For one reason or another, they made a buy that didn't go the way they expected, so they send them out to a place that wholesales them or discounts them and puts them on the secondary market. So you can find new items, open box items, you can find antiques, you can find random odd lots. You can find just about anything at an auction. So I've also, I think, or we'll check the video, I think I figured out how to copy my screen on my laptop. So unlike the last time when I held the phone and tried to talk around the phone and still watch the auction and move the cursor, I think this is going to be a much better format. And it turns out the software was loaded in my MacBook all along. I just had to watch a few videos to know how to work the buttons. So, auctions. I enjoy them tremendously. If you don't use auctions, or at least consider auctions, you should. If you're running an online reselling business, there are probably some in your area. They might be online, they might be in person where you have to travel there, but they're a consideration. I'm Brian, Cabin Fever Solutions. Now each auction, each online auction, will have a variation on a similar set of rules. There's going to be a starting time for the auction. There's going to be an ending time, which is variable. There's going to be a pickup schedule for which days you can physically go get them. If it's an auction that will ship, if you select it, you may have to select it ahead of time so the paperwork comes out for shipping. And then you may have to contact them and say, please ship my items. I always encourage them to ship them in the least expensive way possible, but whatever their shipping policies are, they'll be in the terms of the auction, which is where the rest of the good information is. They'll tell you what their percentage is for a buyer's premium, if there is one, and almost everyone has one these days. It's kind of like the hidden fees that eBay has that aren't obvious until you get the bill, like promoted listings variable. Yeah, there's a fee. So there's going to be some fees. There's going to be some calendar information. They're going to describe what their policy is for, items that are not as they describe them. For instance, most will simply say they're not responsible for the condition, and they do their best to tell you what the condition is. And their best varies from auction house to auction house. They'll tell you if there's a preview and when it is or how to arrange it. So, like anything else, Goodwill has similar things. They have days they're open. They have discount days for colored tags. They have policies about whether or not you can open bags or open items or peel the price tag to see who made it. So wherever you source, unless it's maybe at your mother's house, there are going to be some rules. Tonight we have a local auction closing. It's about an hour away from me. I've shown it before. The difference tonight is going to be that I believe I have figured out by watching a couple of YouTube videos, I believe I have figured out how to screen record, which should make this go much, much easier. The earlier recordings I was trying to use my phone, work my cursor, shift around on the pages, speak into the phone, and actually watch the auction. So I think this will work much better. It shouldn't be as shaky. I should be able to pay more attention to the auction, talk about some of the lots I've tagged, and we'll get a better look at how this works. I'm 18 minutes away from the first lot I tagged. I'll back out of just the watch list and we'll go to the current bids auction. Bidding is open. All right, this is the whole auction. The system is going to automatically refresh about once a minute, so you'll see some shifting around. First lot closes in 13 minutes, it looks like. There are, somewhere here there'll be a count. Here it is. There are 528 lots in tonight's auction. A lot can be something as simple as a faucet, a pair of cups, because this auction company has moved into the store pulls, pallet returns, big box store pallets. So sprinkled around in here, you're going to see a lot of new items or new open box items. You're going to see that mixed in with used items. You're going to see individual, there's the refresh. You're going to see individual items like this cart. And if I click on it here, it'll open it up in a larger, see how it's opened it up? Shows you any additional pictures that have been taken. And they don't spend a lot of time at this auction house taking pictures, just enough to show you what you're buying. Right now, the current bid is at $35. You can see that right here. There's 14 minutes left to go. It has had a total of 10 bids. The screen will refresh in 30 seconds because it refreshes every 60 seconds. This is in their live catalog. And if I go back, this happens to be lot 44. But it's an example of something that's become very popular if you're a buyer and you source from community yard sales or swap meets or church rummage sales, and you want to get in there and be able to put many, many items in your cart, pull it around behind you, not strain your arms carrying or having to make a lot of trips back to the car. And of course, these fold up so they don't take as much space once you've begun filling the car from your shopping. Now, if we go back, we'll go back to the main screen. Now, in some cases, they'll use a stock image. And I understand why. I mean, they want to present it because if it's sealed in a box, especially if it's a brown box, you're not going to see much about the product. But it does lead you to believe that it's new. And see, here's the actual item he's selling, and you can check out whether the box has been crumpled a bit or opened. We can enlarge this as well. Somewhere, here it is. Each auction house is a little different, the software they use. So how you enlarge it and scan it and zoom is different. But we'll shrink that one back down. So this is a Kohler product. And his information for that product says it's a Vind pull-down kitchen faucet. So if you wanted to know what a Vind pull-down kitchen faucet was worth, if you were thinking about reselling this product, you could come over here, and you can do this a couple of ways. And you can come over to the three dots on the side of the screen. You can say, search with Google. You draw around the actual image. It pops up another part of the screen over here, and it shows you that this faucet, sold at builders.com, is $646. Now, if we scroll down a little further, it'll show you if there are any available. Here's an Amazon. Here's a Lowe's, but it's out of stock. Walmart. So it's a popular faucet. It's sold by many of the big box stores. Home Depot. So I suspect this pallet probably came from either Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart. But now you know what it would be if it was new and sealed. And let's see if we can tell from the photo. We can't really tell if this one's new and sealed, and he doesn't say. Usually at the beginning or the end of the auction listing, it will actually say new in box. But 70 compared to 600 plus, that's a pretty good deal if it's intact. And you get kind of a track record. You know, you study an auction house the same way you study a listing or a product. And if you buy a few lots and you're consistently getting what the claim is on the listing, so you begin to feel confident in the auction house, in that if it looks sealed, here's some pillows. Again, a very common item coming in from the big box stores. They're in their bags. So the assumption is they're new. But if we look right here, zoom in a bit, you can see that the packaging is a bit tore up, which is probably why they ended up on the pallet and sold on the secondary market. Sometimes you get open box items. All right, this one's a Toto elongated bidet. This turns your toilet into a bidet. So because this one was obviously open, the auctioneer has taken all the pieces out of the box, and it's up to you to zoom around and see if it looks complete. And you can always send them a question. I did that for a different auction company yesterday. Rose had her self-propelled Murray mower fail. The drive mechanism finally wore out after a long time. So I've been watching for a good value on a used replacement. And one of the auction houses had it. In fact, if I flip over, as long as we're not doing much but waiting for the auction to start, if I flip over to that auction house, nope, wrong one, and I come in here and I say, give me the favorites, and I log in, here it is right here, Cub Cadet, and you'll notice it says the listing was updated. That's because I asked a question. My question was, they claim it starts and runs, but I wanted to know if they tested the drive motor. And when they went to check the answer to my question, it came back that it turns out this one is not self-propelled. So, changes the whole game. I'll still watch this one close because he's not very far from me, and it'd be better to have a basic mower to keep the grass cut while I'm waiting. And if I go that route, or I end up buying her a new self-propelled mower eventually, but the whole idea is we plan to sell agate soon anyway, so I don't want to invest $300-400 in a mower for a piece of property I plan to sell. All right, let's rejoin the auction that's closing tonight. Here it is. So as we look down through here, you'll see that it's now 6 minutes to closing that first lot, but I haven't tagged any of these lots. Here's the first one I tagged, and that was more of a curiosity. We've considered putting a sliding door, like a barn door on a rail, in my office to close it off when Rose thinks I'm messy and she's got company coming. But this one isn't wide enough. But still, I was curious to see what, it's out of the package, obviously, but he's still calling it new. My personal thing when I run an auction is to call that unused as opposed to new, because new sets up an expectation that it's never been out of the packaging. Well, obviously, there's no packaging here. And to watch this, usually there's a square, a heart, or a circle, or a star. And when I uncheck that, it will leave my watch list. It stays in the auction, but you'll notice it's now doesn't have the star blacked out. And once you've gone through the auction and you've shortened it from, 500 and some down to just the ones you're interested in, you can go to a watch list. And on my watch list are 53 lots now that I deleted the door. So I tagged 53 lots to watch out of, over 500? So these are the ones. And the first one I was watching, not because I want to buy one personally, but I was curious to see what a new in-the-box folding wagon sells for at auction. in my state, in my area. Because remember, these bigger items are, for the most part, they're local pickup. He will ship small items, but you're going to lose an awful lot of your savings if you start having an auction house ship out items like this cart right here. But if we were to take this cart, let's see if we can find a brand here. And I don't see the brand, but we can do the same thing. We can say, give me Google Lens. Let's check it here. Yeah. They think it's here we go. Max Sports XL is what came up. Oh, here's the same box. Frugal Hotspot is selling this. Let's visit him. Frugal Hotspot wants to get Costco. So this one came right out of Costco. And selling for $73 at Costco. So now you be the judge. If it's $73 at Costco, what's it worth for you to pick it up in a possibly dented box, possibly open box, possibly store return? But anyway, that's how this works, of course. And as I was saying, the other way you can do this is you can come up here, Max Sports Folding Wagon. He's calling it like new in box. So we can copy and paste. We can come right over here to a site like eBay, and we can see whether anybody is selling these. Here's one. $65 on eBay, $50 delivery from wherever they are. Let's see if it says. A lot of people use calculated. Let's look for the seller's location, Corpus Christi. So to get this item from Corpus Christi, Texas to where I live west of Seattle, it would cost me about $50 plus the sales tax plus $65. So you can see in that case you'd be better off walking into Costco and buying it directly from Costco if it's in stock at the Costco in your area. All right, so now let's go back to the auction in progress. We'll look at the auctions. Bidding is open. And let's see, some of these items, you'll notice they may or may not have jumped. This one looks like it's jumped to 35. I think it was 25 earlier. Pots and pans, again, these are probably right off of a big box store's pallet. Snowshoes, there's the door, still sitting at 25. And most of these websites, they all run software because these are all online auctions. So some of them, there's one in my area, they don't have the snipe control set at all. You can go right down to a few seconds, place a bid, and it does not extend the auction. And that makes it very difficult if you're watching multiple lots that close within minutes of each other, because while you're in looking at one, another one is closing. But most of these sites, somewhere between 3 to 6 minutes from the time, from the clock countdown, if you put a bid in within that window, it will extend the auction. They call it a soft close. Usually it takes it back out to some preset place like the 5-minute mark. And if we get to a lot that I'm interested in and decide to bid, you'll see that in action. Now as we scroll down through here, looking at lots, here you go. See the blue square? This is the one I had tagged to watch. I was curious. Cost me nothing to tag it. Now that I'm no longer watching it, the blue square goes away. This is more market research than anything, because if I were to see one of these and pick it up, say at a swap meet or a garage sale or something, in the back of my mind, now that I've seen a few of these close, I would know roughly what the value is. Because don't forget, that's the hammer price right there, $25. But you're also going to pay the auction house a buyer's premium. They created that concept some decades ago with the idea that the bidder wouldn't necessarily see it, and he wouldn't even notice it if he didn't read his terms of service. But the auction company would be like, well, if I'm going to sell lower end items, I got to pay my staff. I got to cover my overhead, my rent, my lease, my building. So I'm going to build in an administrative fee. A lot of places are 10%, 15, 18% is not uncommon. And whatever that fee is, it's going to be added to this. And if you don't have a reseller permit, you're also going to be charged the state sales tax for the county in the state in which you're buying. At least it's by the county here in Washington. And if we were to look up here at the terms of service, usually there's an auction details page. And if we come down here, it talks about how your loadout days and times are here, that it's an online only auction, preview is by appointment, gives the address. Oh, here it is, 15% buyer's premium. So on top of the price for the lot, the hammer price, you're going to pay the auction house an additional 15%. And don't forget that, because when the price starts getting up to the point where you can buy one new, sealed in a box at the big box store, it diminishes the difference. Your interest may wane. So here I was just curious. I tagged a few of these giant igloo coolers, but we can do a little research here while we're waiting. We'll copy Igloo Max Calf Latitude 62, that's probably 62 quart, roller cooler. And let's see what happens when we put it into a Google search. It'll probably tell us which big box stores are carrying it. There's Walmart, $120. There's Cabela's, $70. Look at the difference between those two. Bass Pro Shop, which is hooked in with Cabela's, $70. Amazon, let's see what Amazon wants for it. $84, and if you've got Prime, that probably ships for free. So look at that price spread, 60, 80, 100. Well, now we can see what it'll sell for at auction tonight, because the auctioneer thinks the quality is clean enough, it's still got his labeling, he's calling it new. And a lot of these really big items, there's a little bit of something got on it right there. Might be bird poo, might be something that dribbled in. But yeah, I'd call this like new or new old stock or new open box. I'd clean that up before I photographed it. These big items, a lot of times they come pallet loaded to the big box stores, and they're not wrapped in any packaging. They're not even saraned or sealed in plastic shrink. But look at this, $15. So if you needed a cooler like this for the summer, a lot better to pay 15 plus 15%. Let's see, what would that be? 10% would be $1.50. 5% would be a half of that. So 70, 2 1/4. So 15% would add $2.25 to that price, plus your sales tax if you don't have a reseller permit or if you're buying it for yourself. Looks like a pretty good deal. We'll leave that one tagged and we'll see where it closes. Because one of the interesting things is that because he has several of these large igloo coolers, he may be hurting his own market running them all on the same night, or running so many of them on the same night. All right, keyboards. Here's an item he's had for some time. He must have got a pallet of these in. They're like sound deadening. Now, I don't know, maybe you make that much noise in the bedroom, but I think they'd be good for a recording studio. But you get a 4-pack of these slatted panels. And he's got several of them, and he had some last month. So you could outfit a whole sound room pretty cheaply. All right, now we're starting to get down near some lots I tagged, because I do sell this type of thing from time to time. And here's the screen if we were going to bid. You can see that as the bid increases, the current bid, whoever's winning it at $25, as that bid, that leading bid increases, the increment gets larger. So it says if I want to bid, I've got to jump to 30.
Now, some auction software, it's funny, it has an anomaly in it. So say the next bid were to be 30, and then after that, of course, the bid would be 35 and then 40. Eventually, it'll jump to even larger bids. But on some software, if I wanted to bid 36, it would take it. And then the next guy would have to go up over 40. Yeah, so sometimes as long as you're above the minimum bid, you can actually increment it. Like you could say, give me 36. And it would accept that bid even though it's supposed to be taking $5 jumps. We'll delete that. We'll close it because we don't want to buy a cooler. But here's some video game consoles. A Wii Fit, some controllers, looks like a nunchuck, a steering wheel. Here's a couple of games to go with the Wii Fit. Here's a Jeopardy game. That's interesting. Bidding's up to 30. I don't really want to play this game tonight, so we'll back out of that and we'll go back. Now here's an item I do bid routinely. Now you notice this color code. I love the way this auction color codes. This one I'm watching. Okay, it's in blue. This one I was outbid on, so it changed from green to red. Green would mean I had the win, or at least I was leading, and red means I've been outbid. So let's give this a try. If I open this up, I'll show you how this works. Bid. It's at $10. Someone else has it. Some sites will even give you the screen name of the guy who has it, so you can see that the auctioneer isn't putting in shill bids. But now I could go $12.50 because it's jumping in this range. It jumps in $2.50 increments. All right, it jumped me to 15. But what happens if I want to say 13? It's over that next bid increment, but it's under what it should be. Oh, see, this one caught it. This software caught it and said I have to bid 15. Or I could just bid the $12.50. But once you learn the software for a particular site, you can use it to help move around the bidding. You can, like me, I like bids in 21, 26, because it means that if I'm competing against somebody who likes to jump on even numbers, 20, 25, 30, I outbid them because I hold the $1 additional bid. 2 minutes, 37 seconds. Here's a box of Pokemon cards. I don't really want to play at $210, but you do get a little stuffed fluffy over here. So yeah, random box of Pokemon and more. The and more is interesting because it means, depending on who built the box, made the lot, you could have 50% low-value sports trading cards. But more than likely, the and more are other game-related. They're Magic the Gathering or they're something like that. Maybe D&D cards, because they commonly get grouped up together. But we're definitely not going to play on that lot. Okay, we're starting to get into some tools. Boat motor, $150 for a Yamaha. Some Yeti. Here's some tools. We're starting to see some tools. Broad axe. I love this kind of thing, but I no longer like to ship this kind of thing. $35, but if that were sitting at $5 and I could grab that at a yard sale or at an auction with a bigger group, I would probably overrule my I don't want to ship big items policy and snap that one up. Some more tools. Oh, looks like lots of bits. Here's some automotive tools. Light bulbs for trailers. Sockets. Sockets are always a good seller. Hand tools. What do we got over here? Hardware. Wrenches. Chisels. Parts. Hole saws, files. What do we got here? Oh, this one jumped up while I was watching it. Westward AC Kit. Well, since he gave us a pretty good title, let's just try going straight into eBay. Here it is, brand new, $32 free delivery. It probably cost $12 or so to ship that item, depending on the weight. So you'd be looking at at a profit after shipping of about 20 minus fees. So let's slide down here to solds, and let's see what people have achieved on eBay. Now, these are not the blue case kits. Here's a blue case kit, $35 with $10 shipping. So this guy actually did a little better. Here's one for $18 plus $20 shipping. And you notice there's a little variation. Is that the same kit? Let's see. 2 circles, a black, a silver, 2 blacks. See how technical that was? 2 circles, a black, a silver, 2 blacks. Same kit. So this guy achieved in the same range. He just worked his numbers differently. He made his price look better, but hit him on the delivery for almost double. And that's just a question of how you like to run your business as a seller. Whether you want to list it as free shipping, or whether you want to list it as what you believe it's going to cost you, like flat rate, whether you're going to let eBay do calculated shipping, or whether you're going to pad your shipping a little bit to cover all your overhead costs as part of the shipping so the number looks good to a buyer. That's all about your business model. If you've got questions about how I do it, please ask in the comments. If you've got concerns about whether one will help you or hurt you, I've got an opinion. But let's go ahead and go back to the auction. Wrong auction. I've got all the auctions lined up for this week on tabs on the top, so sometimes I hit the wrong one. So I would not pay $20 for this, plus the 15% buyer's premium, which would be $3 in this case, to turn around and pay eBay fees to sell it for just a few dollars more than I'd be buying it for. The margin's too small to go through the effort. And if it turned out one of these had been used or one had been dinged on the threads, then you could not sell it as new. Because sometimes on these return pallets, these shelf pulls, store returns, customer returns, the items are not actually new. Here's a Harbor Freight item. You can tell by the packaging. You can see it right here. Used to sell a lot of tools, especially when I worked for the auction house. Garden tools, buckets, jump starters. Here's a drop cord, the incandescent type. Old style battery charger. So when you want to get vintage tools, this is a good place for it. Now, at first I thought these were Makitas. You notice how the color scheme looks an awful lot like a Makita cordless drill. Watch this. Lithium, spell it correctly, Henry. All right, look at the color scheme on the Makitas. Blue, white, and black. Now look at the color scheme in our auction. Blue, white, and black. Not a Makita. It's a heart. It does have its battery, though. Often the batteries, if they work, are worth as much as the tools. I've got both the newer style DeWalt 20s in my workshop, and I've got my original 18-volt DeWalts. And frankly, I actually prefer the 18s as far as the tools. But all my old batteries are not holding a full charge, which is why I finally broke down, bit the bullet, and bought into the 20-volt system. But I still keep my 18s, and I reach for those before I reach for the 20s. Rolls of insulation, trailer hitches, new old stock toys, Minecraft. He's had these up like this, not these exact ones. And they don't justify the buy-in cost as a reseller. Fishing poles. These knives, assorted pocket knives, these are from an outfit called Frost. And many, many years ago, when I worked for the auction company part-time, I would buy big groups of Frost knives because they also sold hunting and tactical knives. And along with every purchase of big knives, they'd send along these little tiny folding knives. And I would sell these at like our summer sale, put them in a display case and sell them for $1 or $2 a piece, because the accumulation of selling them would help pay for buying the big knives. But yeah, Frost Cutlery, you can see them online. They're one of those places where you order knives by the lot in bulk. All right, I tagged this one to watch. This one is an Allen Rangemaster. And you can see that doesn't say Callan, it says Allen. That looks to be pretty good. That's a nice clean unit. Pad for shooting. Let's do a little more checking on this one. Because I don't have a model number or a part number, I am going to try the image search first. We'll come in here like this. We'll search for it. There it is right there. The Allen Company looks like they have their own website. Here's one on eBay. All right, now it does this sometimes. It took me to a page for the products line, not the specific one I searched for. And this must be Canadian, 34 Canadian. Doesn't really help me. Let's see if I can find one that is not Canadian. Walmart. Let's see what Walmart gets for. $48. Pickup is not available, so it's only available on their website. So $48 plus your sales tax. All right, now let's see where it's at here. Sitting at $12.50. I would have to go 15 plus 15%, which would put me nearly 20. And then I'd have to pay fees to sell it on eBay. And even if it's a soft collapsible, the shipping on this one might be a little steep. You might have to pony up $16 to ship this one to the East Coast. So I am, even though the price looks initially attractive, if I had a use for this, I'd certainly buy it at $12.50. But to buy this and flip it is a different game, and that's what you have to keep in mind. All right, that was just page one. I'm going to go ahead and stop this for a second and see how long it took and check my recording quality, because I have a feeling screen saving like this is going to make big files. It's going to take probably a lot of data to do this kind of thing. That first recording was a bit over 36 minutes, almost 2 gigs of data, and I've widened the screen grab just a little bit so that when we go over to eBay and we look for solds, or I go to Google Image, you'll see a little bit more of the screen. Oh, all right. So while we were doing something else, I did win. Let's open this up and have another look. Secret Wars. I didn't recognize that, but I like buying comics that are not as common. You know, the Superman, the Spider-Man, the Hulk. So sometimes I find interesting graphic novels mixed in with these. So let's close it. Looks like a pretty good stack. Here's singles that he just tips up. So often he just shows a few of them, saying, I have no idea what these comics. So you're bidding blind. If you really wanted to know and do your research ahead of time before the auction started closing, you'd have to make an appointment and drive over and actually have him pull the lot off the shelf, and you could thumb through them, and then you could use your phone to Google search the individual comics that made up the lot. But at the price point of $12.50 plus commission, I just like to play the game and dabble. What I will probably do is I've got several of these lots like this backed up in the listing, and what I'll do is once I've got my table saw area cleared, I'll bring in 3, 4, 5 stacks of these, and I'll lay them out, group them up, check the values. Those that are worth selling singly will go up on eBay as singles. Those that don't have separate value, I'll put them in groups and either run them on eBay as groups or run an auction of our own and post them that way. But let's see where the auction's moving to. $210 is what they got for those Pokemon cards. All right, starting to see a little bit more. These are all bidding closed here. So you can see that The auction's progressing along. Last of this group of tools. Oh, here it is. It's closing right now. So somebody paid $20 for this tool. And if you need one, that's a great price. And I don't mind off-brand tools. I mean, I've been a tool guy most of my life, and I'm coming up on 70. But for those tools I use every day, I prefer a good quality tool, especially if it's a cordless tool. You want to make sure you can get replacement batteries for, the life cycle of that tool. For hand tools, I actually often prefer to keep old tools from previous generations, crescent wrenches, sockets, that type of thing. They get scratched, they get wear, but I think the old made in America steel is a lot better than a lot of the stuff coming in from foreign countries. But if you need to buy several sets, or you're outfitting, say, a toolbox for the trunk of a teenager's car, then I advise you to buy the imports and save yourself some money, because they're going to, depending on the child, they're going to get lost, they're going to get broken, they're going to get loaned, and then the sets won't be complete. And that's just me speaking for past experience. But for my own tools, I don't buy the best brand. In fact, over the years, I don't know how many thousands of sockets I've handled, individuals and sets. And my general rule of thumb is that I keep Craftsmans around. My father used them. I used them my whole life. My first set of sockets I bought for myself was Craftsman. Point being, if I buy a set or buy a toolbox and it includes some sockets, and in it are something like Snap-on, I sell the Snap-ons. I keep the Craftsman, I sell the Snap-on. I don't need to keep that much money invested in some common tool. But you roll into your local car mechanic, Ford, Chevy, independent, and they've got those big roll-around toolboxes. It's a source of pride, and I've actually heard it's almost like an audition. The guy says, I want to work for you, and the service manager says, well, show me your toolbox. And if the guy looks like he's professionally outfitted, then he'll probably get the job if his certifications are current. So, it's like the old carpenters, an old itinerant carpenter. He'd show up and, his tools were clean and sharp and in a nice box that he made himself. That would impress the person he was trying to get the job from. And let's move on down through here a bit more. Here's something you can't even sell on eBay. I know, because I've got a few of them around. If this one were a little better looking, I'd consider buying it. You got to have a market. It's like this is a butterfly knife. They flip. Sometime I'll get one out and record flipping them around to show you how they work. They're legal in a lot of states, along with switchblades, brass knuckles, that type of thing. So they're on the list that you can't sell on eBay. So before you buy something in that category, make sure you've got an outlet to sell it. Otherwise, they'll be collecting in a corner. All right, Nintendo. Looks like an original. The first games we bought, Brandy was an original Game Boy. And I always thought the screens on them were too small and too dark. But if you're from that era of, monochromatic screens, you can buy back your childhood here. And you can do it for $15. All right, I tagged this one not because I wanted to spend, $15, $20 on a single comic, but I was curious to see, I hadn't done my research yet, what Spawn #1 was worth. Again, helps me keep values, at least general values, fresh in my mind. All right, Spawn #1. We've got to see if it's the same thing. See original listing. Now, he's got it all in a plastic container. He's got it all graded. It's sealed. So he obviously got the top of the market. Now let's compare that to the one we were just looking at. Looks like it's bagged, might be boarded, definitely not graded, not in the collector pack, but it's only selling for $17.50. Still has 13 minutes to close. And you can buy one like this that looks to be in nice shape. You can zoom in on it. You could stop by and preview it, but see how it's It looks to be pretty good. It's in plastic. And then you could send this off. Now, I don't know what they're charging these days to be graded, but someone, a dealer probably, was originally trying to get $40 for this. The publisher was trying to get $1.95. So it's the perception of value. You change the venue, you change the time period, you change the perceived value. We'll leave this one tagged just so we can see what it does sell for. I haven't bought, bid on, or won many lots so far, and it's because Rose and I are trying to work to clear this kind of stuff from our inventory, our backstock. So something's really got to be unusual, or something I need to group up with something I already have to make a lot that I can put online, or there's got to be something of a proven track record. Now, interestingly enough, this coffee pot, Rose bought one a couple months ago, and this was an example I used, not this very coffee pot, but this model, of parting things out. So here I see he has another one. There's the filter, there's the carafe. Unit may or may not be unused. Let's see if he's got a box for it or anything. So at a minimum, it's open box. Now, because I have the listings in my solds, and I have a few listings left for this item, when I tagged it, it was at $12.50. And I told Rose at $12.50, I'd buy this thing and probably not even plug it in. I'd just turn around and part it right out whether it worked or not, because it was worth more as its parts than it was to sell the whole thing online after the hassle of shipping fees and not having the original box. But I can see now it's jumped up to 30, which would seriously cut into my profit margin. If I'm over there, I'll have to tell him if he gets it back because it doesn't work like the one we bought didn't, to set it aside and then I'll pick it up, because I know how to part these out. All right, let's look through here. Oh, here's another wagon. I tagged this one because I was curious to see if further into the sale, if the price would be fairly consistent. And I see it is. So I can untag that one now. There's no sense keeping track of that. I like the way this software also brings me back to where I jumped into a lot and then jumped back to the master page. Here's an item. Sealed Hewlett-Packard yellow and blue ink. Now the thing about ink is that even expired, it will sell on eBay, especially the brand name stuff. And what it will sell for depends on which model printer it fits. But let's have a quick look. See if we can find any on eBay. Here we go. Looks like the same one. All right. Oh, this is Great Britain, so this isn't really going to help us. We might as well close that one out and go back to our search. All right. Here's one that looks like it might be. Nope. Still came up Canadian. Yeah, just because Google Image is built into my Mac these days doesn't mean it's always going to give me a result. But what I can do, since this is model 44, I can go like this, straight into the eBay search. And now we're actually just looking for a yellow. Here it is. This stuff's pretty cheap. But yeah, my point was simply to say that ink, especially toner cartridges, can do very well. So we can uncheck that one. Lego. He's always got some Legos. This one's definitely open. Looks like it might be bag sealed inside, but he's not calling it new. Well, let's see. The thing about Lego, to really research it, what you need the number. Here it is. This is a 42127. And that way, because one of the things about searching Lego, if you don't search by Google Image from the box itself, set 42127, is that they'll often the same theme. If it's a popular theme, they'll make multiples. And if you just said Batman car, remember every Batman movie, every Batman series They give him a different car so they can sell the kids and the collectors another kit. So if you're doing an apples to apples check, that Lego number is what you want to make sure you've got the right card. This is a Technic. Looks like the prices range from 118 new, that's free delivery. So here, if you add the delivery to the price, you're close. Here's a pre-owned for $50 with shipping of 10, so you're at 60. So your spread is 60 to 120 roughly. So let's come down here now. That's why I widened my screen. And if we say sold, we'll see that a new one sold for 100 plus 26, so 126, right in that upper range. Pre-owned one, and again, is that the same number? 42127. 421. Looks like they transposed the numbers. Which, if you make that mistake, you won't see your item sell as fast. All right, 42127. $30 at auction. So you can see the spread. So now let's go have a look and see. Box has definitely been crushed a bit. A little over here. Parts look sealed. He doesn't say so, but I think that's what he was trying to show us. But it's already up to $50. So that is not a big flip. And you might have your money tied up, because Legos tend to be an item that, on eBay anyway, if it's a current or popular kit, you got a lot of competition. So you sometimes have to cut your margins pretty thin. Some art, some more game stations, some Adidas and Sperry shoes. And now we've just finished page 2. We'll do a little more looking, and then I will probably stop this for a while. Let's see. Oh, here's an item I bid on the other day. Again, a little more unusual. I'm still holding it if I want to increase my bid. No, see, I can do that, and I can bid against myself. But it doesn't raise my bid. It just means if someone else came in to bid $6, the system would shut them down and they'd get an outbid immediately. And I do that sometimes when I know the value is greater than what I'm bidding, because if you can discourage the competition early, they may drop out. All right, here's one that I occasionally play in this market, but usually for old car manuals rather than old gun magazines. But here's a question of, with the size of these photos and the clarity, because they're overlapped and stacked, you can't really tell what issues, what years, that type of thing. So this is an ideal way to come in and grab most of an image, the part you can see, and it should come up and tell us what the Great West is worth. Here it is right here on eBay, 1968. So if nothing else, we now know that this was put out in July of 1968. And this one magazine sold, this is a sold, for $10 plus $5 shipping. Now, what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that that right there is worth more than the current bid. But let's take another look. Let's see how many pictures he's given us. Let's see what we've got here. All right, he showed that one image. He showed another image. So we can use these close-ups. This one is American Rifleman. The clothing looks 60s. But here it is right here. Now this was a group. Somebody sold 10 issues of American Rifleman, and they got $18, or they're asking $18, but they're shipping them for free. So they're going to be paying probably $7, $8 to ship those magazines, because depending on whether they have ads, magazines with ads are not qualified media. You can't ship magazines with ads. I mean, you can do it, but you're violating the policy of the post office. And media is one of those categories where they say they have the right to open and inspect. I'm not sure whether they threaten you with a fine or whether they simply charge you the upcharge. But here you can see they got about $1.80 a magazine shipped. So you have to decide whether that's worth playing. a good auctioneer, and I'm talking about an auctioneer that is good for the consigner, will pull the items that are different and unique and worth more, and he will use them to show off the lot. And if the rest of these are all American Riflemen, then you're looking at, say, making $10 off of all the rest and $10 off of that magazine. And if this is a West magazine and this is a West magazine and their value is good, you might make about 30 off of the ones. Here's another West. You can see it just peeking around. So that's the way I would split this lot. I would take the individual Great West magazines and I would either group them alone or sell them as singles, depending on their value. And then I would make a group up, or all the American Riflemen's, and sell those online as a group. And let's see what this is currently going for. $6. And we still have almost an hour to go. So if in, say, 46 minutes, this is still sitting at $6, I may give it a try and turn $6 into $40 or $50. All right, let's look through here. We're starting to get to the dolls, games, DVDs. What do we got? VHS movies, satin nickel bath door handles, some posters for movies, and some big stuff. Now, I'm trying to avoid playing big stuff. Here's old records. Now, unless these look like, what is that one? Unless these look like old rock albums, I'm not interested. But I don't know what that is. And of course, we know how to solve that problem. Sometimes all you have to do is catch part of an image too, and Google Image, if it's got enough reference data, will pull that up. So it says this is O'Brien, You and I. This one's going to appear in a lot of 5, but there it is right there. We could get a better image, we could get the title, but that is O'Brien, You and I. And with what we've learned, LP, there he is right there. Oh, he spells it with a Y. Let me try that again. I'm Brian with an I, so my default tends to be Brian with an I. $9 ask plus $5 shipping. $12 ask plus $5 shipping. $8 ask plus $6 shipping. I'm not sure you could ship an LP these days for $5. It can go media. And then if you're one of those people who likes to put your LPs inside of an LP mailer, that LP mailer is going to cost you about $1. All right, so here it is. This is probably about average for pre-owned. $6 and $6. So of that $6, he owes eBay some fees, and he's got to help cover his overhead. And that may very well be the best album in the group. All right, I'm back from having some wonderful Italian meatballs, and my search on YouTube for the answer to the question of screen recording turns out that the Macs have the software built right in, and all it is a couple of keystrokes to start it, and then a little pop-up menu appears, and we can catch what's on the screen into a file. All right, so I was eating meatballs when this one closed, so I missed it, and it looks like I got outbid on this one. But as I say, I've got plenty of this category in back stock ready to be listed. Let's see where we're at here. Stamp books, not something I particularly play in. Every once in a while I get them from estates or auctions, and usually just wait until I amass a tray full of them and then send them out to another auction. That's a real specialty theme. And I guess if you want to do well with collectibles like stamps, you're going to have to invest some time in it. Records, magazines, Time Life magazines, Liberty magazines. There can be money in old magazines. You just have to remember that the shipping generally, even the old vintage ones, the post office policy doesn't separate the difference between 50-year-old magazines and 5-week-old magazines. If they've got advertising in them, they disqualify them for the media rate mailing. Here's an item. Let's see what shape this one's in. Old street signs. Probably pulled because of the damage on a routine cycle. A construction company probably just said, this one's worn, we'll replace it. And it ended up in somebody's garage or house, and then it ended up in an auction. So we'll unclick that one. I used to have signs like that hanging up in the Yellow Barn in Seebeck. But when we moved, I took them down, plus a bunch of license plates and things like that. And I don't have nearly as much wall space in the new barn, so I still intend to hang some signs, but there'll be fewer of them. A laminated Boeing poster. I've sold similar laminated posters for submarines before. This one is a cutaway for a military aircraft, a P-8A Poseidon. I believe, I'll have to check that, but I believe that the P-8 is the follow-on for the P-3, which I've ridden in a few P-3s over the years. P-3s are anti-submarine aircraft, P-3 Orions, the airborne equivalent of what I used to do when I worked aboard a submarine. It was interesting to go see what my counterparts equipment was capable of. And then occasionally we'd take the P-3 pilots on board the submarine and let them see how superior our equipment was to theirs. But a Boeing, looks like it says Flight International. So let's give this a try and check some value. Flight International. So there it is, a Boeing P-8A Poseidon. This one's a model kit. So let's say laminated cutaway. Here we go. 24 by 36 size, $45. It's always good to have a scale reference in a listing like this. What's the difference? Here they're only, if you want a small one, it's $12.95. If you want a large one, it's $25 plus $13 shipping. And interestingly enough, they have priority. That's about obsolete in this day and age, but this looks like the same poster. Same logo in the corner, Boeing over here. Now let's go check and see if there's a size reference given anywhere. All right, it just says laminated poster. We've got nothing for scale to tell us whether this is the small one or the large one. I'm looking for anything on the corners. And because it's laying on the asphalt, I can't tell. Nope. Looks like he left nothing to scale. Okay, so right now the bidding is sitting at 5, which would mean even if this turned out to be the small one, I'd still make a tiny profit, where if it was the large one, I would make a good profit. So let's see how we're doing here. We live in the greater Seattle area, which is the home of an awful lot of Boeing plants. So Boeing items, belt buckles, coins, paperweights, jackets, hats, Boeing products come up often. But it also means they're in pretty good demand in this area. So I'm not surprised I'm being outbid on this one. By continuing to bid a little more, I've found out where the gentlemen's or ladies' bid topped out at. And we'll see whether we end up with that one. I'm 12 minutes away, so that actually gives him plenty of time to receive an email from the auction and be notified that he's been outbid and to come back to take a look at whether he wants to increase his bid. Here's something, when we moved out of Seebeck, I sold an awful lot of this type from my own library. Some of these are very, very good old books. Like this one, it was a book like this that taught me how to build stairs. Stairs are one of the more complicated parts of a house because they vary based on so many other factors, and they've got to comply with the code. When I was building the log house, a book on log houses. When Rose and I were building the log house, the building code section on stairs was probably larger than much of the rest of the code on about framing altogether. It's a complicated subject. But I do like these vintage old books. I've sold many of these, but sometimes I can sell one of these older books for $12, $15, and they drop right into a folder. I put a stiffener piece of scrap cardboard in, and this one, of course, would teach you how to figure out board foot calculations. When I ran the sawmill, we would do this type of work. And any of these that wouldn't have enough value, I've got a box already started with some other DIY type construction books. So I'd pull out the 1 or 2 or 3 that would bring me a profit sold separately, and then I'd just put the rest of these into a lot and send them to auction or sell them on eBay. The thing about selling large lots on eBay is, of course, the shipping. Even at media rate, that shipping can climb fast. Now we'll hit refresh here and see whether or not I'm still winning there. We'll throw a bid in on that one. Some anime costume t-shirt items. Here's an area I like to play with sometimes. You can see it here. License plates. Some of these go back a ways. Those are 1957 plates there. Land of Lincoln. And if you're going to sell license plates on eBay, they've got a rule. Last time I checked it, I think it was that they had to be expired by 3 years when you listed them. So you couldn't sell current license plates. I guess otherwise their fear was like people stripping copper out of new construction homes. Somebody would be running around stripping all the license plates off the cars in their neighborhood just to sell them on eBay. Good money, too, for a group of 12. Let's go see. That's only the end of page 3, so let's do a little more looking. Snowboards, baseballs. Is that a baseball? Seahawks beverage dispenser. Look at all these cards. Topps, Pacific, Magic the Gathering, football, Tom Brady cards. Yeah, this auction house seems to get a lot of different sports and non-sports cards in. Let's see this one again with Google Lens, because comics, there are just so many of them with similar names. It's almost always faster now that Google Lens is here. $12.99. There's that one. I'm not sure what condition they're called. Oh, this is your Kindle download, so this is not even a paper copy. So let's close that and take a look. Comic Hub wants 20. eBay Australia has some. eBay, here's a straight eBay. Let's see if that's American eBay. $8.99. Looks to be ungraded loose. $6 shipping. So that'd be a $15 item. Of course, you wouldn't net that, but that's just for one. And you can see there's a nice big stack here. But you can routinely bet that he thumbed through them, and these were probably 4 that stood out. So the others may be either in poorer quality or more common comics, because that's often the way the lots are set up. Dartboards, little smokers, something Pokemon. 2 something Pokemons. Pants. Sometimes it gets new with tags. So, not my size. But if they were, I'd consider them. Work pants. I ruin them anyway, so. Cups, shot glasses, beer bottles, books. Oh, here's one I tagged. A Funkoverse. It's a game rather than individual Funko Pop. So the question is, what does a Funkoverse game go for? Alright, somebody's asking 15. $14.99 plus $8 shipping. Looking at, what is that, $23? So let's do the math. $23 minus 6 is 17, minus the auctioneer's fee, which right now would be about $1. Then you'd put it up on eBay and you'd have to pay around 12-13% for that category on eBay. So you'd lose another $1 or $2 to eBay fees, if you had to promote because it was a popular item, if you've done the math at home, you'd have to decide whether or not that would leave you enough money enough meat on the bone to think about flipping that. So we will undo that one. I'd put in a bid earlier on this and got outbid, you can see. Because once you have your first bid and you've committed to either going to the auction or having the auction house ship you items, then you want to make sure that you're paying for your travel time. Let's see what else. Oh, clock, chronometer. Space pens. I've sold a number of these. This one's a classic, in the box with an outer box slip sleeve. These are the pens that write upside down. I used to use one in my bunk on board a submarine back in the 80s to write letters holding the pad above my head. More license plates, games, military medals. Some people get upset seeing military medals at an auction. But like any other product, unless they're very, very specific, like say a Medal of Honor or something, they come in, they're useful for servicemen who either lose them, misplace them, have them damaged, or when a serviceman goes to retire and someone is tasked with making a shadow box, which is a representation of all the awards that the service member earned or collected or was given during his time in the service. Well, he's going to need to wear the ones he was issued at his retirement on his uniform. So the only way someone can make him a shadow box as a remembrance or a going away gift is to find a redundant set so that they can get mounted into a shadow box. And eBay and places like eBay are a good way to collect those. So there's a market for such things. Now, of course, that sets aside the whole problem with stolen valor, where somebody goes on eBay, buys a medal, wears it around or a lapel pin, and then tries to claim that they were presented that medal for some heroic act that they did. Here's an item I put a bid in on. I'm still not quite sure what it does, but that's why it comes with all its paperwork. But at this buy-in price, I'll read the details and it'll go out as a new open box. Military clothes. Every time somebody gets out of the service, there is a bunch of surplus military gear. Everything from gloves and knee pads and water bottles. Here are packs of assorted olive drab green military socks. And look at the value. Original issue military surplus items usually do well. Here's another group. Some of this is unused sealed stock. This one has a national stock number right here, so you could actually look it up as a reference point and see what it was. But these look like parts and pieces, straps and harnesses. So you may actually have just parts and pieces. And then over here you've got some camouflage. Again, cases and straps and jackets and pouches. So those lots do well. So here's one I tagged to what. And we'll go ahead and uncheck that one. Vintage ball caps. A Jaws board game. And new items that came in. These look like they're right off the Costco shelf. Here's one I put a bid in on. Not for this item, but for this item. I've sold brass items like this in the past. The antlers make it a little awkward to pack, but you protect it, you pad it. If you think it's going to punch out through the side, you double box it. Collectible toys. Quilts. Furniture. DVD sets. And let's see what's on the last page. Midnight Cowboy and Chicago movie posters. These look like they're framed. Okay, and that's tonight's auction. It's still got hour and 40 minutes left to run, but that gives you a good overview and will give me enough recorded footage here to see how well the screen saving feature. Yeah, I was surprised to find out that it's all built into the Mac already, and all I had to do was figure out how to turn it on and how to turn it off. Looks like I got 6 lots. I'll be picking those up Tuesday or Wednesday. 2 lots of comic books, one with those vintage constructions, some Minecraft, that digital transporter adapter that's new in an open box, and the brass animal and antler themed lamp. I'm not sure what I'll do with the lamp, but the animal is something I've sold similar items in the past. So there you go. That was the auction. This one happens every other week. I think we noticed here that this was what the bill currently shows on the statement, but this $487 will be removed when I go to pay the bill. I'll go over on Tuesday or Wednesday and do that. You'll notice I paid $668 for buyer's premium. That's the overhead charge that this auction puts on top of whatever the hammer prices were. And like a content creator walking down the aisles at Goodwill, showing you items, what they like, brands, the value of things, discussing whether they're a good buy or a bad buy. Watching auctions can be the same way. Even if you don't actually source from auctions, or you source a little bit, the online auctions especially are a good way to watch the market prices, because this is different potential buyers competing in an open market. Especially for those auctions where shipping can be an option, you get to see what people are willing to pay for a given item. And it's just another way to evaluate the market and decide which lots are good, which items might make a profit on a given platform. And just like Goodwill, some of these items may only be useful for Facebook Marketplace local pickup. Others can be put up on sites like eBay and shipped anywhere. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Please join us in the future for similar auctions. Please look back at our playlist for the next upcoming auction. This is Brian, Cabin Fever Reselling. Okay, just unloaded the truck. I'll show you the auction lots as well as the books I picked up. Here's that digital transport adapter kit. I'll have to read the information inside to see what it's actually. Here is the metal antler set. I've sold something similar to that in the past. Here is an antler lamp. Nice little lamp. Comic books, graphic novels, kids books. I don't actually think of these, especially the comics and the graphic novels, as books. But somewhere along the way, and I'm still not quite sure when or how it happened, I've obviously become something of a bookseller. Here's a lot of construction books. I believe these older books are what will make my money. The newer ones will probably just end up going in a lot of similar books, and then we'll either sell it in one of our auctions or we'll put it up online. All right, this is what I picked up today from my source of free books. Back out a little bit. Crafting type books, embroidery, sewing, stenciling, that type of thing. Here's a book on collecting silver plate. Here's some on, I like these. This one's the Pierre DuPont Garden Heritage book. And sometimes these little specialty books, which you normally pick up at the garden, do okay. For a thin little book that'll mail easy, yeah, those usually do okay. This row here, religious books, I'll check them for value, along with a couple other boxes I've already got. A couple will probably sell on their own. The rest will go in to make a book lot, and I'll sell it as a lot. Now here's some cookbooks. I like the old vintage ones, like this one's an Osterizer recipe book. Something about kids books for Australian Airlines. There's an instruction book. A few more few more kids' books here. I do the same thing. Rarely are these worth listing alone, but I'll make some bundle lots out of these. Romance novels, once I get the table saw clear, I've got several big boxes of these. I'll bring them up, spread them out by series, best-selling authors. I know I've got a bunch of hers. Then I'll put those up as paperback book groups. A few random items. Here's a vintage paperback novel. Here's a couple of, in the social category, the guy who was a prisoner of the Khmer Rouge, some Jung philosophy, and books. A lot of these, they're low-run books. So other than sending them out to colleges and libraries, if somebody wants a copy of one of these, usually it's got to come from a place like eBay. Wind, Sand, and Stars. That one's probably an adventure novel, but we'll find out when we look them up. I'm looking forward to when I've got the internet working properly in the green shed behind me, and then we can sit in comfort winter and do the searching and comping right there. And our effort to continue clearing out space will give us more horizontal surface to spread these out and make up lots. But for now, because the wind's kicking up, I'll get them boxed up and put away. If this auction got you interested in watching auctions to begin with, just think of them as a different kind of goodwill. Some days you do well, you fill up a cart. Other days you find very little. Well, auctions are the same way. Normally I wouldn't run to an auction to pick up that one little tableful right there. Just finished the clip where I showed you what I picked up between the two stops. Yeah, and I laugh every time I realize I'm stocking up books for the winter. Yeah, I'm getting an awful lot of books on hand. But like I mentioned, I don't really count comics and graphic novels as books. Whole different market. It's like being a media seller and selling, music CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, or records and old reel-to-reel. It's a little bit different than, say, selling books. And selling book lots, which I sell as many book lots as I do individual books, is a little bit different than collecting antique or vintage books and going into that to market. Some of that, of course, is based on what's available in your area. I would have never really considered selling romance book lots if they weren't available to me for the price and the time of just picking them up. But I sell a lot of that type of thing. Define a lot. I sell them regularly, though they do tend to collect faster than I can get them listed, mixing them in with things like hunting knives, tools, industrial parts. But it just shows the flexibility of selling what is available in your area. And in a lot of categories, you don't have to have a lot of experience. If you're going to buy and sell, 80-year-old, 100-year-old books, and you're looking for first editions and leather bound, you're going to need to have a little more knowledge or rely more on the comps when you're sourcing. Where when I'm getting just general books by buying, say, a bookshelf at an auction or an estate sale, I don't worry so much when I'm paying $5, $10, $15 for the entire contents. I think I've already filmed it, but I found a little set of brass dolphin bookends that will, when I get them listed, will pay for that particular lot that day, probably, and then some. So often the things on the shelf, other than books, have value too. And when they're a surprise because they weren't featured by the auction company, that's even better. If you get a chance, give me some feedback about what you'd like to see. I think we're up to nearly 40 videos on the playlist now. You can also listen to them as a podcast. I've made every one of them a podcast. Go out and buy something so that you can go out and sell something. This is reselling in retirement. Goodbye from the lake.
consider auctions. You're watching Cabin Fever Reselling. You have a good day.